My name is Emily, and I never thought my life would take such a drastic turn in such a short time. I always considered myself a faithful woman, committed to my marriage and my principles, but a summer night changed everything I thought I knew about myself. I had been married to Jack for 10 years. Our marriage wasn't bad, but it wasn't what I had dreamed of either. Routine and monotony had taken over our relationship. Jack spent more and more time at work, and I felt increasingly lonely and forgotten. It was during this time that my friends Sarah and Mark decided to throw a party at their house. It was a hot July night, and the festive atmosphere seemed to promise a fun evening. Jack was on a business trip as usual, so I decided to go alone. I arrived at the party feeling somewhat insecure. It had been a while since I'd gone out without Jack, and I felt out of place. That's when I saw them for the first time, Alex and Ryan. They were standing by the pool, laughing and chatting animatedly. Alex, tall and dark-haired, had a smile that lit up the whole room. Ryan, blonde and green-eyed, exuded an air of confidence that was magnetic. Sarah introduced me to them, and from the first moment, I felt a special connection. The conversation flowed with an ease that surprised me. We talked about books, travel, music. I felt alive again, as if awakening from a long slumber. As the night progressed, the atmosphere became increasingly charged. Alex and Ryan's looks became more intense, their smiles more suggestive. I knew I was entering dangerous territory, but I couldn't help it. The attention they paid me, the desire I saw in their eyes, made me feel wanted and valued. In a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I tried to resist. I really did. I kept telling myself over and over that I was married, that this was wrong. But with each glass of wine, with each accidental touch, my defenses were weakening. At one point, in the night, Alex leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Want to see something special?" Without waiting for an answer, he took my hand and led me into the house. Ryan followed us, an enigmatic smile on his lips. We went upstairs and entered a room on the second floor. It was a study with shelves full of books and a large window overlooking the garden. The music from the party came muffled, creating an intimate and almost unreal atmosphere. Alex closed the door behind us and turned to me. His gaze was intense, full of desire. Ryan approached from behind, his warm breath on my neck. I was paralyzed, torn between desire and fear. "Relax," Ryan murmured, his hands gently caressing my shoulders. "Let yourself go." And I let myself go. At that moment, all my principles, all my promises vanished. There were only the two of them, their hands, their lips, the heat of their bodies against mine. What followed was a whirlwind of sensations: passionate kisses, expert caresses, broken whispers. I felt adored, desired like the center of the universe. Alex and Ryan moved in perfect synchrony, as if they had done this 1,000 times before, and maybe they had. I lost track of time. I don't know how long that madness, that frenzy of passion and lust lasted. I only know that when it was all over, when the three of us lay exhausted on the study carpet, a sense of unreality came over me. What had I done? How had I come to this? Guilt wasn't long in coming. As I hurriedly dressed, avoiding Alex and Ryan's gazes, I felt like I was drowning. I left the party without saying goodbye to anyone, driving home with eyes full of tears. The following days were hell. Every time the phone rang, I startled, fearing it was Jack discovering my infidelity. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the images of that night, a mixture of pleasure and shame that tormented me. When Jack returned from his trip, I felt my heart stop. How could I look him in the eye? How could I pretend everything was the same? "Are you okay, honey?" he asked as soon as he walked through the door. "You seem off." "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just tired," but I wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. Every caress from Jack made me feel dirty, unworthy. Every "I love you" was like a dagger in my heart. I started avoiding him, making excuses not to be alone with him. Our conversations became superficial, full of uncomfortable silences. Jack noticed something had changed. I could see it in his confused look, in the way he tried to approach me only to find an invisible wall. But he didn't ask, perhaps fearing the answer. Meanwhile, I couldn't stop thinking about Alex and Ryan. I felt furious with them for having seduced me, for having awakened something in me that I now couldn't control. But I also missed them. I missed the passion, the excitement, the feeling of being desired. One afternoon, while I was at the supermarket, I ran into Ryan. My heart skipped a beat when I saw him, a mixture of desire and panic. "Emily," he greeted me with a smile. "What a surprise to see you here." I tried to keep my composure, respond normally, but my hands were shaking as I placed items in the cart. "How are you?" he asked, his voice soft and seductive. "Alex and I have been thinking about you." "Please," I whispered, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "I can't do this. I'm married." Ryan looked at me with a mixture of understanding and desire. "I understand," he finally said, "but if you ever change your mind..." He left me his phone number scribbled on a piece of paper. I put it in my pocket, hating myself for not throwing it away immediately. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. My marriage was slowly crumbling, and I didn't know how to stop it. Jack became increasingly distant, spending more and more time at work. I immersed myself in my guilt, unable to confess, unable to forget. There were moments when I was on the verge of calling Ryan, of succumbing to temptation again. But I always stopped at the last moment, the memory of that night mixing with the image of Jack, with the promise we had made at the altar. It was in one of those moments of weakness when something happened that would change everything again. I was at home, alone, staring at Ryan's phone number. My finger hovered over the call, button trembling. And then the doorbell rang. Startled, I quickly put the paper in a drawer and went to open the door. It was Jack. But it wasn't the Jack who had left for work that morning. This Jack had red eyes, as if he had been crying, and was holding a bouquet of roses in his hand. "Jack?" I said, surprised. "What are you doing here? I thought you had an important meeting." "I cancelled it," he replied, his voice hoarse. "Emily, we need to talk." My heart stopped. Did he know? Had he discovered my infidelity? I let him in, preparing for the worst. We sat on the couch, a tense silence between us. "Emily," Jack began, his voice trembling slightly. "I know things haven't been good between us lately, and I think it's my fault." I looked at him, confused. This wasn't what I was expecting. "I've been so focused on my work, on getting that promotion, that I've neglected you," he continued. "I've taken you for granted, and that's not right. You deserve more, you deserve everything." Tears began to well up in my eyes. Guilt was choking me. Here was Jack, taking all the responsibility, when I was the one who had betrayed our trust. "Jack, I began. But he interrupted me. "Let me finish, please," he said, taking my hands in his. "I love you, Emily, more than anything in this world. And I want us to be what we were. Again, I want us to be happy together again. Would you give me another chance?" At that moment, I felt as if the weight of the world had fallen on my shoulders. Jack was here, opening his heart to me, asking for a chance I didn't deserve. How could I keep lying to him? How could I keep hiding the truth? I made a decision at that moment, a decision that I knew could cost me my marriage, but that was necessary if I wanted to have any chance of saving our relationship. "Jack," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "before you continue, there's something I need to tell you." And then, with my heart in my throat and tears running down my cheeks, I told him everything I told him about the party, about Alex and Ryan, about how I had felt, lonely and forgotten. I told him about that night of passion, and about the guilt that had been eating me up ever since Jack listened in silence, his face a mask of pain and shock. When I finished, the silence that followed was deafening. "Why?" was all he said, his voice barely audible. "Because I was hurt, because I felt alone," I replied, knowing that no excuse would be enough. because I made a terrible mistake and I've been paying for it every day since then. Jack stood up from the couch, turning his back on me. For a moment, I thought he would leave, that it was all over. But then he turned to me and I saw something in his eyes that I didn't expect: determination. "Emily," he said, his voice firm despite the evident pain. "What? You did it hurts more than I can express. But I also know that I haven't been the best husband lately. We've both failed in different ways." He sat down next to me again, taking my hands in his. "I don't know if we can overcome this. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forget what happened, but I know that I love you and that I want to try. If you want to, if you're willing to fight for our marriage, then I'm willing to try." His words left me breathless. I expected anger. I expected him to leave me, but not this. Not this offer of forgiveness and reconciliation. "Yes," I said through tears. "Yes, I want to try. I love you, Jack, and I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust again." The following months were difficult. There were moments of pain, of repressed anger, of doubts. We started couples therapy, learning to communicate again, to really listen to each other. Little by little, day by day, we rebuilt our relationship. Jack learned to better balance his work and our life as a couple. I worked hard to earn his trust again, being completely transparent in everything. It wasn't easy. There were days when we thought we wouldn't make it. But we clung to each other, remembering the love that had united us in the first place. A year after that fateful night, Jack and I renewed our wedding vows. It was a small, intimate ceremony, just the two of us and a handful of close friends. When we looked into each other's eyes and repeated our promises, I felt like we were starting anew, stronger than ever. That night, as we lay in bed, Jack hugged me tightly. "You know," he said softly, "I think, in a way, we should be grateful for what happened." I looked at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" "It forced us to face the problems we had," he replied. "It forced us to fight for our marriage, to remember why we fell in love in the first place. And now I feel like I love you more than ever." I felt tears spring to my eyes, but this time they were tears of happiness. "I love you too," I whispered, "more than ever." As we fell asleep in each other's arms, I reflected on the journey we had made. I had made a terrible mistake, one that could have destroyed everything I loved. But through pain, forgiveness, and hard work, we had found a new strength in our love. I can't change the past. I can't erase what I did. But I can learn from it. I can use that experience to value what I have, to never take love and trust for granted again. Alex and Ryan are now just a distant memory, a painful but necessary lesson. Jack is my present and my future, and as I fall asleep, listening to the beating of his heart, I realize that this is true love. It's not perfect. It's not always easy, but it's real and worth fighting for. The following years brought new challenges, but also new joys. Jack and I learned to face problems together, to communicate openly, and to never take our love for granted. Our relationship strengthened in ways I never thought possible. We decided to move to a new city, looking for a fresh start. It was scary at first, leaving behind everything familiar, but also exciting. It was as if we were writing a new chapter in our story together. In our new home, we rediscovered the passion we thought we had lost. Every night was an adventure, every morning a new beginning. We laughed more, talked more, loved each other more deeply than ever. One day, as we were walking in a nearby park, Jack suddenly stopped and looked at me with a serious expression. "Emily," he said, taking my hands in his, "there's something I've been thinking about lately." My heart skipped a beat. Despite how far we had come, there were still moments when fear took over me. Moments when I feared the past would come back to haunt us. "What is it, honey?" I asked, trying to stay calm. Jack smiled, a smile that lit up his whole face. "I think I'm ready for us to start a family." "What do you think about having a baby?" Tears instantly sprang to my eyes. It was something we had vaguely discussed in the past, but had always postponed for one reason or another. Hearing Jack say he was ready, that he wanted to take that step with me, filled me with indescribable joy. Yes, I replied through tears of happiness. Yes, I want to have a baby with you. We hugged right there in the middle of the park, not caring about the curious looks from passers-by. At that moment, I felt that everything in my life finally fell into place. The following months were a whirlwind of emotions, the excitement of trying to conceive, the anxiety of waiting, the indescribable joy when we finally saw those 2 lines on the pregnancy test. The pregnancy wasn't easy. There were moments of terrible nausea, mood swings that tested our patience, fears, and insecurities. But Jack was by my side every step of the way, holding my hand during ultrasounds, rubbing my back during sleepless nights, constantly assuring me that I was beautiful and strong. When our daughter Sophia was born, 9 months later, I felt like my heart was going to burst with love. Seeing her for the first time, holding her tiny body in my arms, was an experience I can never adequately describe, and saying Jack hold her, with tears in his eyes and a smile that lit up the whole room, made me realize how lucky I was. The first months with Sophia were exhausting but wonderful sleepless nights, endless diapers, the constant worry of whether we were doing it right. But they were also months full of first smiles, contagious laughter, moments of pure happiness. One night, as I was feeding Sophia in the rocking chair in her room, Jack quietly entered and knelt beside us. "You know," he said softly, gently stroking our daughter's head, "sometimes I still think about everything we've been through to get here." I felt a lump in my throat. I knew exactly what he meant. "Me too," I admitted. Jack looked at me, his eyes full of love and understanding, but you know what? I wouldn't change anything because all of that brought us here, to this perfect moment. I looked at our daughter, sleeping peacefully in my arms, and then at my husband, the man who had forgiven the unforgivable and loved me unconditionally. And I knew he was right. Our path hadn't been easy. We had faced betrayals, pain, doubts. But every obstacle, every tear shed, had led us to this moment, to this family we had built together. As I gently rocked Sophia, I reflected on how a single decision can change the course of an entire life, how a moment of weakness can take you to the brink of the abyss, but also how true love can save you, can give you the strength to fight and rebuild. Alex and Ryan were now barely a distant memory. A painfully learned lesson. Jack and Sophia were my present and my future. They were my home, my strength, my reason to be better every day. I can't say there aren't moments when the past tries to creep into my mind. There are nights when I wake up startled, the echo of old mistakes resonating in my head. But then I look at Jack sleeping peacefully beside me, hear Sophia's soft breathing through the baby monitor, and I know I'm exactly where I should be. Our life isn't perfect. We have arguments, we have difficult days. Raising a child is a constant challenge, and keeping the spark alive in a marriage requires effort and dedication. But we face every challenge together, stronger for everything we've overcome. As Sophia grew, Jack and I strived to create a home full of love, honesty, and trust. We wanted our daughter to grow up knowing that true love exists, that mistakes can be forgiven, that family is a safe haven in a sometimes chaotic world. When Sophia turned 5, we decided to tell her a simplified version of our story. Not the sordid details, of course, but the essence, that Mom and Dad had gone through difficult times, but that their love had been stronger than any obstacle. And did they live happily ever after? Sophia asked with bright eyes. Always the romantic Jack and I exchanged a knowing look before responding in unison. "We're working on it, sweetie, because that's the truth. There's no perfect happily ever after love, marriage, family. Everything requires constant work. But every day, every moment I spend with Jack and Sophia reminds me that it's worth it." Sometimes, when I look back, I barely recognize the woman I was that summer night. the woman who was about to throw away everything she had for a moment of passion. But I don't judge her. I understand that she was lost, hurt, looking for something she thought she was missing. What I didn't know then was that what I was looking for had always been there. It was in the little things, in the way Jack looked at me in the mornings, in how he held my hand during movies, in how he always knew when I needed a silent hug. Now, 10 years after that fateful night, I can say with certainty that I'm happy. Not in a perfect and uncomplicated way, but in a real and deep way. I have a husband who loves me unconditionally, a daughter who brightens each of my days, and a home filled with laughter and love. I know I will always carry the scars of my past mistakes with me, but those scars no longer define me. They are a reminder of how far I've come, of how strong true love can be. If I could talk to my past self, to that confused and lonely woman at that summer party, I would tell her to stay strong, that the road will be difficult, but that it's worth it. I would tell her that true love isn't found in moments of fleeting passion with strangers, but in the eyes of the man who has been by your side for years, who has seen you at your best and worst and loves you anyway. I would tell her that happiness isn't in the excitement of the forbidden, but in the warmth of a home built with love and trust. That the real adventure isn't in succumbing to temptation, but in fighting every day to be better, to love more deeply, to build something that lasts. As I write these words, I hear Sophia and Jack's laughter in the garden. They're planting flowers, a new family tradition. We started last year, I join them, my hands sinking into the fresh earth as Jack smiles at me, and Sophia chatters about the colours she wants for her own garden someday. And in this moment, surrounded by earth and flowers and love, I know with certainty that this is all I need. This is happiness. This is true love. My story isn't over. Each day is a new chapter. Each moment an opportunity to love more, to be better, and I'm grateful for every page, even the most difficult ones, because they've brought me here to you who are reading this. I say, true love exists. It's not perfect, it's not easy, but it's real, and it's worth fighting for. It's worth forgiving, it's worth being forgiven. It's worth building, rebuilding, and continuing to build, because at the end of the day, when you look into the eyes of the person who has been by your side through everything, when you feel your child's embrace, when you hear laughter filling your home, you know you found something precious, something that no fleeting temptation, no moment of weakness can match. That's what I've learned. That's my story, and I continue to write it every day, with every I love you, with every goodnight kiss, with every shared moment, and I can't wait to see what comes next.